Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are focusing our lens on a word that is so fundamental to English, so common, that we often just completely overlook its incredible depth. The verb go.
It's funny, isn't it? It's one of those, linguistic paradoxes. Every single learner encounters go on day one.
Oh, absolutely. First lesson.
Yeah, first lesson, you think, okay, easy, got it. But true mastery, the ability to use it naturally across all its forms, all its expressions, that's actually one of the final hurdles to sounding truly fluent.
I find that so fascinating. The words we use the most, the really high frequency ones, they're often what dictate whether your speech sounds competent and, well, native, or if it just sounds functional.
Exactly.
And if you can confidently navigate the, I don't know, dozens of applications of Go, you've basically unlocked a massive amount of conversational capacity.
Well, for this deep dive, we took a really structured, comprehensive guide to the verb go as our source material. And our mission today isn't just to, review basic vocabulary.
We're going deeper.
We are. We're going to unpack the crucial nuances, the specific usage patterns, and, importantly, the common pitfalls that are detailed in that source material. We want to transform your passive recognition of this word into active, confident application.
Think of this as the essential guide that takes probably the most common verb in the language and gives you that expert-level understanding. We're really aiming to extract those key nuggets of knowledge that'll let you incorporate go seamlessly into your everyday speech, whether you're talking about movement, time, or even emotions.
And understanding its multiple identities is, I think, genuinely one of the fastest ways to level up your English. It's an indispensable verb.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this core verb, starting with its most literal identity, and then we'll see how quickly it evolves into something far more abstract.
Oh.
So let's start at the very beginning, square one. Physical movement. When we first learn English, what is that most foundational, basic definition of go?
At its absolute core, go means to move from one place to another. That's it. This is the literal physical definition, and it's all about establishing direction and destination.
So we're just talking about the mechanics of displacement. A subject travels from location A to location B.
That's the one. So if you visualize it, it's always about that directional movement, and typically it means leaving your current location to get to another.
Right, and the source material gives some really clear, everyday examples of this.
It does. We use go to talk about transit all the time. Think about routines. I go to work every day, or she goes to school. It establishes that standard expected transition of location. The movement itself is the core idea.
And I think we can't forget that this physical movement, this base, is what gives the verb its initial strength. Even when we start using it metaphorically, that inherent idea of traveling, of covering some kind of distance, it's still sort of lurking under the surface.
Yes, that physical motion is the literal foundation, connecting those 2 points, location A and location B. It always implies a journey, some distance covered, whether that distance is, across the street or across the country. It's the purest expression of the verb.
But this is where the complexity really starts, isn't it? Because go is rarely satisfied with just describing a physical location change. Here's where it expands into that second identity.
Precisely. The moment we start speaking naturally, go just expands its scope dramatically. It moves away from physical location to include 2 other vital concepts, changing states or doing activities.
And that's the big leap.
It's a huge leap. This transition moves the verb from the concrete world of, say, geography into the much more abstract world of condition and action.
I think that abstract application is one of the biggest hurdles for learners, using go to describe a change, not just a trip. So if I say something like, the fabric went yellow in the sun, I'm not talking about the fabric physically packing its bags and moving.
That's a perfect example of the transformation side. In that usage, go is functioning as it's a copular verb. It links the subject, the fabric, to its resulting condition, which is yellow. It's applying the concept of movement to something non-physical. The fabric moved from its original color state to a yellow state.
So it becomes a verb of dynamic shift, not static location. What are some other common examples of this kind of state change that you hear in daily English?
Oh, we use it a lot for deterioration or negative change. You hear the milk went sour all the time.
Right, or the bread went moldy.
Exactly. We also use it for rapid, sudden emotional changes. If someone gets very angry, we might say he went ballistic, or maybe she went silent. Their emotional state has transitioned, and quickly.
That's a fascinating insight. It often seems to be used when that change is unexpected or outside the normal state. Like if the power fails, we say the lights went out.
Yes. That ability to express transformation is just a massive grammatical asset that go provides. And it extends beyond just the immediate moment. Think about long-term processes. If you're talking about the history of a building, you might say, the property went into disrepair after the factory closed.
Ah, so it moved from a state of being maintained to a state of decay.
Right. So the key takeaway for you, the listener, is recognizing that go handles all kinds of movement. Movement through space and movement through a condition or a state. You need to be ready for both.
And we see that foundational physical movement reflected in those immediate practical examples from the source, the sentences you hear every single day.
They reinforce that directional base. I'm going to the supermarket.
They went to the park.
And we are going home.
The sentence, I'm going to the supermarket, is great because it shows the present continuous action, a movement that's currently underway. It's physical, it's immediate, the destination is clear.
And that we are going home example is crucial too, because home often acts as a destination without needing that explicit preposition to.
That's a little quirk, isn't it?
It is, but the core function is identical. Movement toward a specific destination. So to summarize this first part, mastering go means understanding that it's the engine for change. Whether you're changing your location, changing your activity, or watching a condition shift, go is the verb that gets you there.
It really demands that you think dynamically about the word. It's not just about walking or driving, it's about all these linguistic shifts in the subject's state. Okay, let's transition into one of the most structurally important, yet I think frequently confusing applications for learners, the future marker, going to. This is where the verb go seems to shed its physical meaning almost entirely.
This construction, going to, is utterly essential. It is used constantly in spoken English, and while it literally contains the verb go, its primary function shifts completely away from physical movement. It becomes a dedicated grammatical tool just for talking about time.
So we define its core function as talking about the future. It's basically an auxiliary phrase that sets the stage for the main verb that's about to follow.
Exactly. But what is absolutely vital, and what our source material really highlights as the key insight for you, is the specific nuance it carries. The use of going to implies that the action is already planned.
That's the key.
That's the key. Or that there's strong present evidence for a future outcome. This is the defining characteristic that separates it from, say, the simple future using the word will.
That distinction is incredibly valuable. When I choose to say, I am going to study tonight, I'm communicating more than just a future event. I'm implying that the decision was made earlier. Maybe I already cleared my schedule or I pulled out my books. It's a pre-planned, intentional future.
It implies a degree of conscious choice and preparation. If the action were spontaneous, a sudden decision made right this second, the structure would change. And that contrast is the whole reason the construction is so useful for native speakers. It conveys intent.
Okay, let's dive into that contrast, because this is where you can gain immediate precision. Imagine the phone rings right now as we're talking. What would you say?
I would spontaneously say, I'll get it, or I will answer that. That decision is instantaneous. It's born out of the immediate situation. It's a spontaneous offer. I would never say, I am going to get it.
Because that would sound strange.
You would imply I had already planned to answer the phone before it even rang, which, makes no sense in that scenario.
That clarifies the boundary beautifully. Going to is for an executed intention. Will is for a spontaneous intention. That means when you use going to, you sound decisive, you sound organized.
So let's analyze those examples from the source material to really solidify this idea of pre-planned action. The first one, I'm going to study tonight.
That means the speaker has already made the commitment. It doesn't matter what happens between now and tonight. That commitment is established.
And the second example, she's going to call her mom. This implies the plan is set. Maybe it's the routine, maybe the mother is expecting the call, the decision is in the past, and the action will happen in the future. The communication is already established.
This sense of establishment and certainty is why going to feels so stable when we're discussing near-term future plans. Or even known events. If you look outside and see huge dark clouds, you'd say, it's going to rain.
Right, because the visual evidence, the current state, makes that future outcome feel almost certain. It's not a guess. It's a conclusion based on evidence.
The connection here is fascinating. The go component in going to actually originated from the idea of literally moving toward a future goal.
The physical motion of moving has been abstracted into the mental motion of planning. You are mentally moving toward that time.
So the immediate mental shortcut for you, the listener, remains paramount. Go on its own equals physical movement or a change in condition. Going to equals a preset future plan. They are different grammatical animals, even though the latter uses the former.
Yes, and this structure also gives us the ability to talk about things we feel certain about, not just things we intend. It adds weight. If you are absolutely set on moving to a new city next year, you're far more likely to say, I'm going to move to Toronto than I will move to Toronto.
Because going to carries that strong baggage of established commitment.
Exactly. And while will can sometimes feel a bit more formal or even hypothetical, going to is the undisputed champion of casual, decisive, everyday future planning.
Okay, so we've covered basic movement and we've covered future planning. Now we need to address the activity structure, which is maybe the most unique application of go. The go plus ing pattern. This pattern answers that very frequent learner question. Why do we say go shopping or go swimming and not say do shopping?
It's a brilliant question, and it's one that requires understanding a very specific governing rule in English. Unlike many other languages that might use a generic action verb like do for all activities, English has established a strict protocol for certain kinds of activities, and it relies entirely on go.
And the rule is distinct.
Wow.
Use go plus the activity in its inning form when you're discussing activities that are typically performed outside the house or are primarily for fun or leisure.
That dual criteria movement and leisure is the key insight. These activities inherently involve movement away from your current location.
Yeah.
You have to go somewhere to do them. The verb go emphasizes the movement required to initiate the activity.
It's like the preparation phase is built right into the verb. If the activity requires travel and has a recreational element, go is basically mandatory.
Let's elaborate on the specific list of accepted activities provided in the source. These really need to be internalized because they are fixed structures.
Okay, the most classic example. Go shopping.
Yes, shopping requires movement to a store, a destination. It requires that preparatory movement.
Next, go swimming. You have to travel to water, a pool, a lake, the ocean.
Then go hiking. That activity is synonymous with outdoor movement and leisure.
Go jogging. Movement for fitness, often directional.
And go dancing. Leaving your home to participate in a social, recreational activity. The pattern is just absolutely rigid across these examples.
Okay, so let me challenge that boundary a little. I say, I do laundry. That's an activity I do inside my house. So why do I do laundry? But I go shopping.
That contrast perfectly illustrates the rule. Doing laundry doesn't require movement to an external destination, and it's certainly not classified as leisure.
It's a chore.
It's a chore, typically performed at home. Now, if you had to travel to a laundromat, you might say, I need to go do the laundry, but the primary verb defining the chore itself is do. This confirms that the go plus ing pattern is reserved for those destination-oriented leisure pursuits.
That makes perfect sense. The movement is integral only if the activity happens outside the walls of your current location, and it's for recreation or a specific function at a destination.
It provides a strong mental anchor. If you're preparing for fun or preparing to move to a fun location, you use go. If it's a standard indoor task, you generally use do.
Which brings us to the crucial mistake that requires a strong correction for our listeners.
Yes, we have to stress the incorrect usage. The phrase, I am doing shopping, is grammatically awkward. It's incorrect in standard English. The only accepted usage for this activity is the go plus ing pattern. I am going shopping. You cannot replace go with do in this specific structural context.
So, if you're planning to engage in any outside-the-house, recreational, or destination-based activity, the rule is simple. Put go at the start, use the ing form of the activity, and you're instantly speaking more naturally and correctly.
It's a high-reward rule for you because it's easy to remember, and it applies to dozens of common conversational scenarios. It really is a definite shortcut to sounding more native.
As we transition into time, we have to confront the biggest challenge of any high-frequency verb: irregularity. The verb go just refuses to follow the simple past tense rules, and its forms are absolutely essential for fluent storytelling.
Irregularity is where most tense-related mistakes happen. The temptation for learners is to apply the regular rule and say go, but English demands that we memorize the unique forms for core verbs like go. We really have to break them down systematically to master them.
Okay, let's start with the present tense just for a quick review. Standard conjugation applies here. I go, we go, and then the crucial third-person singular, she goes. That final S is the first thing that often gets dropped in rapid speech, but it is grammatically required.
Now, for the simple past tense, this is the workhorse for describing completed actions. Yesterday, last week, 5 minutes ago. The form is went.
We absolutely need to spend some time emphasizing went. It is the key to correctly grounding any completed action in the past. If you're telling a story, you will use went constantly.
And finally, the past participle is gone. This form is typically used with auxiliary verbs like have or had to form the perfect tenses, which describe actions that started in the past and are connected to the present, or actions completed before another past action.
Okay, let's dive into the core distinction that confuses almost every learner. The difference between the simple past, went, and the present perfect construction, have gone. Why can't I just use them interchangeably?
This is such a critical point. The simple past went describes a finished action in a finished time. The action is fully contained in the past. Typically, the subject has returned or the movement is complete. For example, I went to the bank this morning. The implication is that this morning is over and I am here now.
So if you say, I went to the store, the action is completed, you could be back home holding the groceries right now. The focus is on the event itself.
Exactly. Now compare that to the present perfect, have gone. The present perfect construction emphasizes the result of that past action on the present moment. If I say, John has gone to the store, the crucial implication is that John performed the action of going, and the result is that he is not here now. He is still away.
Ah, so if someone asks, where is Sarah? And I reply, she went to the library. That's a little bit ambiguous. She might have gone and come back. But if I say, she's gone to the library, the message is crystal clear. She departed, and she is currently at the library or still traveling there. The focus is on her current state of absence.
That is the functional difference. If the movement is finished and the subject is back, use went. If the action of going is finished but the subject is still away, or the action has direct relevance to the present status, use have gone. It's all about whether the result of the action is still active right now.
This requires precision. You use the past simple when you are narrating a sequence of events, because the events themselves are sequential and contained in the past.
To make this stick, let's use the source's mini-narrative case study as a functional example. The power of went is in its consistency.
Okay, the story goes, yesterday I went to the beach, I went swimming, then I went for a walk, and later I went to a cafe.
Notice how every single completed action, every movement, every activity that happened yesterday is correctly and seamlessly marked by the simple past tense verb went.
It creates a perfect narrative flow. It anchors the entire sequence of events firmly in the past.
And crucially, look at I went swimming. Here, went is doing triple duty. It's the past tense marker, it retains the go plus ing structure we just talked about, and it confirms the entire event is safely locked in the history of yesterday.
The so what for you, the listener, is this. If you want to recount a day, an event, or a personal history, you need to be able to access the word went without a second thought. Mastering this one irregularity is mastering conversational narrative.
And the simple past tense is often the most frequent tense in casual dialogue because we spend so much time talking about what we did recently. The ability to shift smoothly from I go for routine to I went for narrative shows a really strong grasp of English temporality.
And just as a final note on the participle, remember that gone is also used in the passive voice, though maybe less frequently. But for active conversation, remember, I have gone means I'm not here. I went means the trip is complete. We've established the grammar, the structure. Now let's pivot to prevention. We need to help you avoid the 3 most common pitfalls when dealing with go, as highlighted in our source material. This is where we maximize immediate improvement.
This is the checklist section. These 3 errors account for a huge percentage of grammatical slips with this verb. So addressing them directly provides that highly valuable corrective focus.
Let's dissect mistake number 1, the continuous trap. This is the error of saying I am go to school.
The grammatical rule being violated here is the law of continuous verbs. Whenever you use the verb to be, so am, is, are, to talk about an action currently in progress, the main verb must take the ing form. The verb has to show continuity.
So the correct phrasing has to be, I'm going to school. You need that ing, otherwise the sentence is just structurally broken. You are mid-action, so the verb has to reflect that.
The action is ongoing. The movement is in progress. Without that present participle, the listener loses the immediate sense of the ongoing nature of the movement.
Okay, mistake number 2 is ignoring the irregularity we just discussed, using yesterday I go to the mall.
This is a classic time marker conflict. The word yesterday clearly, loudly demands the past tense form. The corrective analysis must always point to that necessary irregular form. Yesterday I went to the mall.
The moment you fail to use went, You're forcing the listener to rely on context clues to place your story in time. Using the correct tense makes your communication immediate, unambiguous, and precise.
Precision in tense agreement is non-negotiable for clarity in English. You always have to match the time adverb like yesterday or last month with the correct tense form went.
And mistake number 3 revisits our activity structure. The dough dilemma, saying, I do shopping.
We just have to reinforce the specific structural rule from Section 3. For leisure and destination activities, the verb required is go, not do. It's not about whether you do the action, but whether you go to perform the action. The correction is always, I go shopping.
These 3 mistakes are high-impact corrections because they address the points where the unique structure of go collides with basic English rules. Master these 3 fixes, and your daily fluency really does leap forward.
And moving beyond grammar for a moment, let's focus on clarity and sound. Understanding pronunciation allows you to both speak confidently and understand native speakers in rapid dialogue.
Let's start with the word go itself. The source gives us the phonetic guide, go. We need to emphasize that the O is not a simple vowel.
That's critical. The O sound in go is a diphthong. This means it's a gliding sound that starts with one vowel sound, almost an aw, and then moves quickly into an oo sound. It's an elongated O sound.
Not a short, clipped gow.
Not gow, and definitely not the mispronunciation that sounds like goo. If you truncate that sound, it can confuse the listener or just sound abrupt.
Okay, now let's tackle the continuous form, going, because this is where the gap between formal teaching and natural speech really widens.
The full form is going, pronounced clearly with that final G. However, in practical, rapid, informal speech, the final G sound in the ing ending is very often dropped, and this results in the natural reduction to goin'.
This insight is so valuable. If you only expect the full formal pronunciation of going, you will struggle immensely to understand a native speaker saying, I'm going to the store, or we're going home.
Native speakers prioritize efficiency. When going is used as the future marker or as the continuous verb, that final G requires extra effort, so it often gets elided. The meaning is preserved by context.
So the rule of thumb should be, when you are speaking slowly, deliberately, or formally, use the full G. When you're listening to casual conversation or a movie or fast speech, you need to train your ear to expect the natural contraction to go in.
And this also happens with the past tense, went. In rapid speech, went is often linked to the previous or the next word, and that final T can sometimes be dropped or only lightly pronounced, especially if the next word begins with a consonant. Understanding these natural speech patterns is key to bridging that gap between classroom and real-world English.
Go really shines as a powerhouse verb because it combines so easily with prepositions to create phrasal verbs. And these are the expressions that govern vast swaths of daily conversation. Mastering them is essential.
Phrasal verbs are tricky because the meaning often deviates so much from the individual words, but the expressions derived from go are consistently practical and immediately applicable. We should give these the depth they deserve.
Let's start with the directive and continuative uses. First up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead is primarily used for giving permission, confirming access, or signaling clearance. If you ask a question and someone says go ahead, it means yes, you are permitted to start the movement, the action, or the speaking you just requested.
It's the linguistic green light. It is. It often implies consent or a lack of obstruction.
And next, go on. This seems related, but it functions differently.
Go on is used to ask for persistence or continuation of an action that's already started. If I'm telling a story and I pause, you might encourage me by saying, please, go on. The preposition on itself implies continuity moving along the path you're already on. It maintains momentum.
I like that distinction. Go ahead starts the movement, go on sustains it. One is preparatory, one is persistent.
Now, let's look at movement in a social context, focusing on returning or leaving home. We'll start with go back.
Simple but critical.
Go back just means to return to a previous place or state. If you left your keys at the office, you have to go back. It explicitly reverses the original go movement. It emphasizes a return to an origin point.
Okay, now go out. The source material defines this as leave home to socialize, and this specific social implication is fascinating.
It is extremely important. If you simply leave the house to get the mail, you might say, I'm just stepping outside for a minute. But if you say, I'm going out, it implies a planned activity, a social engagement, dinner, a party, meeting friends. It is coded language for recreational movement.
I remember a time I told a friend I was going out, but I just meant I was running a quick errand. They showed up all dressed up. We learned quickly that going out carries some serious social weight. It implies a degree of fun or formality.
Exactly. The movement verb go combines with out to create a specific social expectation. You're not just leaving the house, you're leaving for the purpose of socializing.
Yeah.
It just shows how subtle changes in prepositions can radically alter the social context of the simple verb go.
Finally, let's analyze the abstract usage of go to describe changes in quantity or condition, the state change indicator, using up and down.
This is a perfect demonstration of go's versatility, where it's entirely disconnected from physical location. We're using it to discuss metrics, states, and conditions, often in a professional or analytical context.
So go up means to increase, and go down means to decrease.
The utility here is immense. Think of formal financial reporting or market analysis. You hear these phrasal verbs constantly because they're concise. If a company's profits rose, you'd say profits went up. If demand fell, demand went down.
This source provides two excellent application examples showing how go applies to both concrete, economic concepts and abstract personal ones.
For the concrete financial example, prices are going up. This applies the continuous form to an economic trend, signaling an ongoing expected increase in value or cost, a crucial phrase for discussing economics.
And for the abstract, my energy is going down. That's a highly relatable personal observation. Applying a movement verb to an internal, non-quantifiable state, your internal battery is moving toward empty.
This ability to use go to describe abstract vertical movement increase and decrease is vital. You hear it daily when discussing everything from health trends to stock markets, even emotional status. The list of go phrasal verbs is long, but these are absolutely foundational for making your English flow effortlessly.
Mastering these phrasal uses really is the difference between simply knowing the definition of go and actually integrating it into natural, flowing conversation. It's the move from the dictionary to the dialogue. Okay, we've covered all the building blocks: movement, transformation, future planning, activity patterns, irregularity, and phrasal power. And now let's see what happens when we stack them all up in one complex sentence. We've made it to the most complex part of the structure, the ultimate test.
The capstone structure provided in our source material is deceptively simple, but it's grammatically perfect. The sentence is, I'm going to go shopping tomorrow.
When you first see this as a learner, it just looks redundant. It looks wrong. Why do you need the word go twice, right next to each other? Let's break this down meticulously to show why it's not only correct, but necessary.
This is the definitive proof that go operates in two separate grammatical categories within the same sentence. Let's look at the three distinct layers of meaning working together here, starting with the phrase that initiates the action.
Okay, layer one.
This is the future plan marker from section 2. Crucially, in this construction, going to functions almost entirely as an auxiliary phrase. It sheds its physical movement meaning, it just signals intention. The plan is set.
Oh, you're to go.
This is the main verb of movement and action from section 1. It is the lexical verb. It describes the physical action that the plan is centered around, the literal movement away from your current location toward the activity. This is the simple base form required to follow the auxiliary phrase, going to.
And layer 3, shopping.
And that's the activity pattern from section 3, the inning form used for leisure activities performed outside the house. This defines the destination and the purpose of the action described by the main verb.
Wow.
So when you put it all together, I'm going to future plan, plus go, physical movement lexical verb, plus shopping, activity, you get a sentence that is incredibly precise. The first going to is pure grammar indicating intention. The second go is pure movement indicating action. They serve different masters within the same structure.
That clarity, the ability to explicitly distinguish the auxiliary function from the lexical function, that's what allows you to move past that initial feeling of redundancy. You realize the word is pulling double duty, but only because it's playing two separate grammatical roles. That is true mastery of this verb's structure.
It allows you to construct the most common type of future leisure statement possible in English, combining planning, movement, and activity seamlessly.
Before we wrap up, let's deliver that final bulleted summary, the essential knowledge nuggets you need to take away immediately and carry into your practice.
First, go means to move or to change state. That dual function is the core of its versatility.
Second, going to is your primary tool for future plans. It indicates the decision is already set and intentional.
Third, use the go plus ing pattern for activities that take you outside or are for fun. If it involves a destination and leisure, you use go.
Fourth, The past form is that irregular and essential word, went. Use it when you're telling stories of completed actions, and remember that have gone means the person is still away.
And the final critical piece of context.
Yeah.
Go is absolutely ubiquitous in daily English. Once you start noticing these sophisticated patterns, the phrasal verbs, the dual functions, you will hear them constantly, and that will accelerate your comprehension.
You now have a deeper, more analytical, and definitely more confident understanding of this core verb. You've moved far beyond simple definition recognition and into a space of really analytical mastery.
And that ultimately is how English mastery grows little by little, day by day, as our source material encourages. Your journey is continuous, and your progress is cumulative.
So don't hesitate to start applying these rules immediately. Fluency isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about using the rules, noticing your errors, correcting yourself, and trying again with greater confidence.
You've done the hard work of analysis today. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep applying these insights.
If the verb go signifies movement, change, and continuation, as exemplified by the phrase go on, which means to persist, then true mastery of this word means applying its constant drive to your own learning journey. The knowledge you've gained today isn't an endpoint. It's the linguistic permission to always keep going toward your goal of fluency.
Keep moving forward, and we look forward to the next deep dive.
Until then.